Ladies and gents, welcome to some Battlefield 1. For those that don't know, the game is an open beta and all of you can go and download and play it, I believe, on PC and the consoles, but if you want the better experience, obviously, if you have a PC capable, and honestly there's no reason why you shouldn't, well, I mean, there are reasons you shouldn't, but I mean, if you have a PC that is decent, there is no reason you can't run this game, because it is easily one of the most optimized games out there. It plays exactly like Star Wars Battlefront. If you were able to run Star Wars Battlefront, if you kind of mistakenly bought into the hype like the rest of us, then you will be able to play this game no problem. Because the visuals are nearly exactly the same, and the performance of the game is near exactly the same. Like, there's not that much of a difference. So, if you can play that, you can play this. And if you're curious at all about Battlefield 1, and you're kind of like thinking about, hey, do I want to buy this game? Is it going to be like any good? Like, the campaign looks interesting from the E3 trailer, but how about the multiplayer? Like, is it going to change things up? Is it going to revolutionize the multiplayer space in a Battlefield title? No. And, I mean, if you want to find out yourself, you can play it. And I'm gonna tell you my opinions. I'm gonna explain to you why it isn't, in my mind. If you know you want to listen to it. I mean, I don't know why you're here if you don't. But basically, the game, although exceedingly fun, like Battlefield games are, you know, they're fun. They're fun to just run around and shoot each other and do some crazy shit. But again, it's just more of the same. I mean, they have horses, which I gotta admit are super fun to run around on and shoot people in the face. They kind of give you this cavalry class as soon as you kind of get onto one, even if you are in the game with a different class, like an assault or medic or gun or whatever. And then you jump onto a horse, suddenly your class just poof, changes and now you're cavalry. And you get this rifle that like one-shots the shit out of everybody. And you get a sword so you can slice motherfuckers up. It's honestly really fun. That, like, the cavalry aspect was one of the, like, biggest things I experienced when I first got into the game, which is pretty much what you're seeing the gameplay. The gameplay is in chronological order, by the way. So when I first started playing, all the way to when I just kind of stopped and then decided to make this video. So everything is in chronological order. You're seeing it how I experienced it. And cavalry was like a major part of the, as you're going to see, the beginning of it. And I realized just how fucking fun riding around on a horse was. They work really, really well. Like, you have complete and total control of your horse. It's so intuitive. And riding around on them is just like, you don't feel like you're fighting the horse. You don't feel like you'll vault over things. If you're sprinting, the horse will just like jump over obstacles very easily. And it just feels extremely streamlined and intuitive, which I think is great. It took me a little while to figure out that you can't actually like aim down the sights, obviously. And unless you pull the trigger or you actually aim with the right mouse button, only then will the crosshairs actually appear. So at first, I was kind of left-clicking to bring up the crosshair, and then I'd be shooting to try to kill the target, not realizing that you can just hit the right mouse button, and then it'll actually bring up the crosshairs and slow your pace down, because you can only shoot when the horse is, like, trotting and not sprinting. So it's kind of like, you have to figure that out. And of course, sprinting, I figured out later, is actually toggleable for the horse for some stupid reason. Everything else in the game is hold to sprint, except for the horse, which I think is a little bit of an oversight and extremely retarded in my mind. Like, why would they make the horse have to be toggle sprint? That just completely throws you off your game when you realize everything else is consistent except for the horse. So, I mean, fix that shit, because that's fucking annoying. There's no reason why it's not hold to sprint. I mean, it's easier to hold it to sprint, let go of shift, and then aim and shoot motherfuckers versus having to, like, toggle and be aware of what the fuck you're doing. Anyway, it's still incredibly fun. I say it was intuitive, minus that little discrepancy, but I mean, you can kind of get used to it, and I mean, I didn't even realize it for the longest time. I was still holding shift to sprint regardless, so you know, whenever I shot is basically when you would stop sprinting the horse and go into a trot, so I don't know, whatever. Minus that, minus the little, you know, the horses, there's other aspects of the game that I think are actually done better. You know, Battlefield 4 was an excellent game when it came out. I mean, other than all the fucking problems it had, like, I can tell you right now, the performance of the beta back then was like shit, and then the game released and then it was completely shit. Like, it was an absolute abortion of a release of a game. It performed like ass. I mean, even on the system I had, which is pretty much the same thing I have now. I have the exact same graphics card I had when I was playing Battlefield 4. And at the time, although I upgraded, I went from a GTX 560 Ti to a 770. And I was able to play, you know, like Battlefield 3 maxed out with like over 60 FPS, no problem. And this was back when I was playing at 1280 by 720p. Okay, think about that. 1280 by 720. You know, like console level resolution, if that, you know. And then I went from this GTX 770 to Battlefield 4, running everything at Ultra, with 720p and I was hitting like 40 FPS. Even if I turned all the graphics down, I would still get like 40 to 60 FPS, and it was like the more people on the map, the lower the performance. Kind of the same thing that's happening with Squad right now. But I mean, it was just, it made no sense, especially now that it gets over 60, so you can just tell it was a poorly optimized game. And if you compare it to Star Wars Battlefront, where I have the exact same graphics card, but I run it like, not on Ultra, but the one below. So on high, I never drop below 60 FPS. Battlefield 1's in the same category. It never drops below 60 FPS when I'm playing on high. Under a few occasions with like in crazy particle effects or environmental effects, it may hit like 50, like 5, and then it'll just go back up to 60. Really depends, but I mean, ultimately it's always a consistent 60 to 70 to 80 FPS. And if I lower the graphics even more, then obviously I'm going to get into the hundreds. Like on medium, I play with like 100 to 90, you know, 90 to 100 FPS, whatever. It's always varying. It's a lot like Star Wars Battlefront in its performance and scalability, which I think is an excellent thing because Battlefront looks amazing regardless of your graphical settings, and it runs like exceptionally well. Battlefield 1 is taking place, or is taken right after that. It's basically just accomplishing the same thing that Star Wars Battlefront did. So if you're worried about performance, you shouldn't be, but I mean, the open beta is obviously a good way of testing that, even though it's like, you know, it's a beta, but it's kind of more like a demo and a preview. Definitely look into it, because you'll probably, like, you know, I mean, if you're at all interested in what this game is, you absolutely might as well just, you know, get a game in or two and kind of determine whether or not you like it. So, in the beta, there's only one map, and this map has interesting weather effects like you saw at the beginning of the video. However, it only happened once, so I don't know if it's like some kind of Levolution thing that Battlefield 4 had going on, where you have to trigger it somehow. But that sandstorm I've only experienced once. I played the game for maybe like 7 hours now, and only then, only at the very beginning of my experience playing this game has there ever been a dust storm like that. And when it was happening, it was easily the coolest moment I've experienced in the game. Everything after that was like, there's no sandstorm, this isn't nearly as fun. Like, the sandstorm and weather effects like that just make the game so much more interesting to play. It's so cool running around when you can't see fucking 5 feet in front of you, and you're trying to like determine who's the enemy, and you're running in through buildings and shit. Like, that was exciting. But never again. Never again. I don't know how you trigger it. I don't know where it comes from. I played an entire matches where it never, ever came to be. So I have a feeling it's some kind of way you have to trigger it, like kind of like the Levolution from Battlefield 4. I'm assuming, because I don't know how to trigger it. I don't know what the fuck. It only happened once, and I wish it would happen all the time. I mean, I wish the entire map was like that. Fuck not having a sandstorm. It's so much more interesting when shit's like impossible to see. But anyway, nonetheless, one map. Two game modes. You got Rush, which for some reason seems to play in a sluggish manner. Now, I thought this was related to DirectX 12. So you got Rush and Conquest, first of all. And when I was playing Conquest, it was running silky smooth. You know, no input lag, everything was great. And then I went to play Rush, but this was around the same time I switched the API to DirectX 12, since they support a test version of that API in the beta. And then when I went to Rush, it was running kind of sluggish. Like, it was like, it had mouse input lag, almost like I had VSync on and mouse smoothing at the same time. It was like, it just felt really fucking weird. I couldn't aim quickly and precisely like I was in Conquest. So naturally I was concerned. I'm like, okay, this may be a DirectX 12 related issue. I went back to 11 and it's still doing it. So I don't know what the difference is. The map is the same, but for some reason playing in Rush creates all these kind of minor issues with mouse lag, which I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but it's happening for me, and it's kind of annoying. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. Especially when you compare it to, like, Conquest, which is the entire map with more people on it, and I don't have that problem. So, I don't know what to tell you, boys. I don't know. It's just, it's strange, and hopefully when the game is actually released, that won't be a thing, because it's just, you know, weird and inconsistent and shouldn't be happening. I mean, I don't know why game mode would affect performance in any particular way, but anyway, regardless of that, like, the game is still fun. Now, of course, it's going to take place after, you know, Battlefield, the entire series. It's going to follow the rule set, the guideline for a Battlefield game, which means tons of progression and unlocks and stuff like that, which you do with currency now. You unlock it with currency. And that's not a terrible thing, but I mean, I would rather have a game that never had unlocks. Like, progression to me, I just want a game, I just want it to die, honestly. I'm so sick and tired of progression-based games and a shooter. You're playing a shooter and you're progressing. Oh, I gotta unlock this weapon, I have to play for like so many hours. and unlock, you know, get to a certain level and earn enough credits to be able to buy that item. And it's like, why can't I just get everything at once? Like, whatever happened to the days where, you know, Battlefield in the past, you just got what the fuck you wanted, right? You picked the class, you picked the weapon, there you go. You know, that's why I love Squad so much. Squad is just simple. It's like, hey, look, these are the classes available, which are based off of real classes, you know, like real, what you would have in an actual platoon, a squad, based on the size, relevancy of whatever your objective and your job is. And Squad makes perfect sense, and it's completely balanced in the way they do it. Why the fuck can't Battlefield do that? You know, why can't other games do that? But it'll never happen. Why? Because EA and DICE are just in love with the idea that you can progress and unlock things. And that will never change. Unfortunately, I don't think that will ever change. I will never see in my lifetime EA and DICE decide to be like, you know what? Remember 1942? Remember Battlefield Vietnam? Remember Battlefield, you know, 2 and 2142? Remember when you just picked what the fuck you wanted and you just went into the game and played the game with no other focus other than just playing with your team and trying to win? Remember those days? Yeah, no, let's not fucking do that. Let's just let everybody run around the map, kind of just being their own little John fucking Rambo, John Woo, like, fucking sprinting everywhere, jumping and bunny hopping and spraying fuckers down, and then picking up super powerful kits on the map because, hey, fuck it, let's just give away like these super armored flamethrower fucking bullshit and like a rifle that can one-shot everybody. Like, let's just do that and, you know, never make a game balanced and realistic and normal again, right? Because Battlefield 1942 in the day, although not, you know, it wasn't a simulator, it was realistic. You know, it kind of had a realistic depiction of combat. You're flying airplanes, the airplanes behaved realistically. It felt like a real game, you know, it felt like you were playing something that felt real. Where now, everything's just over the top. Battlefield turned into a game that's all about being over the top. And although that's certainly fun, like, don't get me wrong, that kind of shit is super fun, but at the same time, it's kind of mind-numbing, you know, you kind of get used to it and bored, because it's just like, everything is just so, you know, all the explosions and particle effects and shit just get like, it becomes the norm. It just becomes like you just get used to it, right? It's like when you're experiencing something for the first time, it's usually like intense. You know, when I first got into, like, example, I first got into Battlefield 1, I was playing it, I was like, holy crap, this is crazy, this is super fun, it's super polished, super responsive, looks amazing, wow. And then, like, you know, later on, it's like, okay, you know, the novelty wore off, and now I'm starting to see all the issues, and it's just like, it's not as great, it's not as fun. It's just like, you know, pretty much what happens with many games, right? When you first jump into a game, it's always like, it's new, it's exciting. But then you play it for a while, and you start noticing faults, or you start noticing issues, and then you don't get super excited anymore. And that's kind of what Battlefield 1 did. I kind of got past the novelty rather quickly, actually. After the first 2 matches, the novelty was done. And then it was like, you know, just a regular Battlefield game again. It's still fun, you know, like, they've done some interesting things with, like, craters in the ground, like, explosions will actually dig out a foxhole, like, crater. And that's kind of interesting, because, I mean, if you're in a tank and a round lands right in front of you and misses you, or hits the ground, or even hits the front of your tank, it can blow a hole in the ground, you know, displacing the dirt, and your tank will kind of just rock forward into the hole, which actually makes you have to reposition to be able to shoot back. Which I think is kind of interesting, because then you can kind of like pin a tank into a hole. He's not going to be stuck, but it'll fuck up his aim. You know, it'll kind of like change his elevation of his turret, which makes it a lot easier for you to keep getting rounds on target and just keep fucking him over and over and over again with rounds, which is something I think is interesting. Not only that, but there's cover everywhere. When you're running around and, you know, planes are dropping bombs, like, every single explosion creates a foxhole you can hide in, which I think is, like, let's be honest, that's fucking cool. You know, like, that is something that's been missing from many games. And adding, like, a little tiny levolution thing like that, I say that with quotation marks, definitely makes it more interesting and a lot more fun. And changes the way the gameplay actually feels, because now explosions, other than just blowing buildings apart and kind of, you know, dynamically changing the environment that way, now there's more, you know, you can actually dynamically change open fields. And running across open fields isn't just, like, running across an open field and getting shot at now. You can actually take cover in, like, holes and craters and foxholes that were generated by player explosions and artillery and missiles and bombs and whatever. So, I mean, that alone is definitely an interesting change to the game that I absolutely approve of. And there's so many changes, like the way you spawn into vehicles now, which is a lot more interesting. Now it's like, you spawn on a base and there's 3 icons. So you got like your tank icon, you got your horse icon, you got a plane icon. If the number's 0, nothing's available. But then if there is something available, you can spawn in whatever you want. So it's not like the traditional Battlefield games where, okay, there's an Apache or a Cobra or like, you know, the fucking Black Hawk or whatever. You like certain vehicles you have to pick from. Now it's whatever is available. Like whenever there's an asset available, you pick what you want that asset to be. So it's like, if there's one plane available, you can select it, and you can choose which plane you want to spawn in, whether it's a bomber, fighter, or attack plane. And same thing with tanks. You know, you can pick whatever tank you want. So everyone can be rolling around the exact same plane. You can have like 3 bombers in the sky if you want, or you can have a fighter, an attack plane, and a bomber, or you can have just, you know, 3 fighters or 2 fighters and 1 bomber. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it, which to me is a lot better than, you know, restricting what players can use and how they have to spawn into it. Now everyone can just take whatever the fuck they want, so long as they happen to claim the resource when it's available. Horses, however, are just, they're horses. There's no, I mean, it may be limited. There might be different classes for the horse right now that you can ride on, but right now it's just cavalry. You pick a horse, it's a horse. You know, like, you're not gonna get some kind of armored horse and become a fucking Templar Knight Crusader bitch and, you know, spread Christianity by slicing people's heads off. Like, probably not gonna happen. Would be interesting, but I don't think so. So a little while earlier, I kind of touched on how the game was, you know, responsive, and I can honestly say that that is absolutely the truth. I mean, there's still a lot of complaints coming in. People are playing this and saying, like, a lot of people don't even like Battlefield 1. They're just kind of saying this game is, like, abysmal and whatever. But I mean, like, ultimately, I actually like what it kind of turned into. I mean, if Battlefield 4 was like this, it would have been much better in my mind, you know, if you had the same structure as this. Of course, it doesn't beat having actual runways and, you know, an actual base in which you can go and get your vehicles at. But it's still better than nothing, and considering the way that Battlefield 4 had it in Battlefield 3, this is definitely a step up in regards to the same mechanics. Same exact features, same exact mechanics, just done a little bit differently to make it a lot more intuitive and easy to get into and understand what the hell's going on, which is a lot better. But the game definitely feels, unlike Battlefield 4 where you got like dying around corners and all these kind of issues that are still to this day prevalent, they're still there. This is definitely probably the most responsive Battlefield I've experienced since the Battlefield Hardline beta. And that's a good thing. Like, that is, like, this game is responsive. When I'm shooting someone, it feels like I'm shooting them. It doesn't take a whole lot of rounds to kill them. It's like, you're fucking them up. Like, it feels like you're actually killing these people in real time. It feels almost like you're playing a LAN game, you know, where there's really no lag, no issues whatsoever. Of course, there is some rubber banding issues I've encountered now and again, but ultimately, it feels incredibly responsive. Now, to touch on that whole responsiveness and, you know, shooting and stuff, let's talk about airplanes. Let's talk about the actual dogfighting mechanics themselves, because they are fucking terrible. And if you came from playing a game like War Thunder, you know, where you're used to biplanes and even just World War II fighters, and you're flying around and you're shooting people, you know exactly how guns feel, because, you know, let's be honest, War Thunder is exceedingly accurate to the real thing. Like, especially if you're playing simulator battles, it doesn't matter. The actual aircraft performance, how they fly, how the guns function, all that shit is as real as you're going to get. Like, just aside from IL-2, like the IL-2 Sturmovik series, which, more specifically, IL-2 Sturmovik 1946, which is easily the most realistic. It's quite old, but easily the most, like, realistic simulation of World War II planes and even, like, earlier jets in the day. War Thunder, you know, obviously uses the same engine, same exact whatever. Point is, like, it's as real as you're gonna get when it comes to dogfighting and, you know, in a game, in a simulator type environment. So, playing this and then, you know, getting in a dogfight and, you know, firing the machine guns on your plane, trying to get into a dogfight and shoot, and how much you have to lead the target at the range you're at, it's fucking retarded. It is absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason why the bullets travel at, like, the speed of a fucking airsoft gun or paintball gun, right? Like, I don't need to lead. You know what I mean? Like, this thing travels like, what, 300, 500 feet per second is what it feels like, because in reality, I don't need to lead that much. Like, in reality, I'm shooting and I'm seeing a constant stream of tracer and smoke going in a direction of the target I'm actually engaging, and it's near instantaneous, especially, I mean, I can understand for balancing reasons, but it's still completely dumb. Like, speed up the bullets, for fuck's sakes. Like, I never understood the idea of Battlefield, like, trying to make the game, you know, realistic. Like when they added like bullet drop, like, yeah, we have bullet drop, yeah, it's kind of more realistic ballistics, but it's like, no, because a bullet doesn't drop off that much in under 300 fucking meters. Anyone who's ever fired a weapon in real life knows the difference between like 100 meters and 300 meters is like the nose to the bottom of your chin. That's the difference. That's the elevation change. Like, if I have my weapon zeroed for 100 meters and I fire at it, like, trying to aim at the guy's forehead, Like, or let's just say like the center of his nose, right between his eyes, right? That's where I'm aiming. I'm gonna pull a trigger, and he's at 300 meters, but I'm shooting with my weapon zeroed for 100. It's gonna hit him in the chin or just like the upper neck, all right? Like it's gonna hit him in the throat or the chin. That's the drop off. It's just a couple of inches. It's not a big fucking drop off like you see in these games where you have to like lead target, like raise your sights up like halfway just to hit a target at 300. Like that's not how it fucking works. You know, Battlefield over exaggerates the shit out of bullet drop and bullet velocity, like to the point where it actually infuriates me at times, but it's still satisfying because it is a game, right? And landing those shots and lining things up nicely is satisfying to pull off. But I mean, again, it's not entirely indicative of what actually happens in real life with real bullets. And the planes do this the worst because you're shooting and you're seeing like, it's like a water gun, man. You're just like trying to line up the shot and like the bullets don't feel like they're traveling near fast enough to actually be able to lead targets properly when you're in a dogfight. The fact that you have to lead so much just to hit a target that's on the move like right in front of you, just, it doesn't make any sense. And it's incredibly annoying. And especially when you're flying in a cockpit view, it does make it much harder because the actual propeller and the instrument panel in front of you and the guns will be will obscure your target when you're trying to lead the target. Like it's just like, come on now, you know what I mean? Like just fucking speed up the bullets. End of story. Just make them go a little bit faster. Like, come on, I don't need to lead a target that much. I should be able to just point and fucking shoot and shred the target apart, and leading only so much. Of course, the planes fly slower because the map is a constrained space. There's not a whole lot of area to like fly in like you would in real life, and you got to worry about ground targets and shooting on the ground. Like everything has to fit within the map, so it makes sense to slow everything down. But I mean, bullet velocity is something that does not have to change. You don't need to adjust bullet velocity so much to make a game feel balanced and playable. So just speed them up, speed them up, speed the bullets up, just speed them the fuck up. Like, I mean, you're even seeing it right here, how they're just dropping off, like, and then they go really slow, like they're, like it's a fucking flare falling from the sky. Like, that's not how ballistics work. But anyway, like, you're seeing it all right here. How much you have to lead. Anyway, whatever. I just wish it was faster because that's, well, I mean, you're seeing it. It's just, it's ludicrous. It's ridiculous how much you need to lead a target. So anyway, in closing, is the game any good? Well, it's certainly more polished than Battlefield 4 ever was. So if you like Battlefield 4 and you absolutely crave a new experience, especially in a World War I theme with much better visuals and performance, Battlefield 1 is it. This game runs like infinitely better than Battlefield 4, even to this day, it runs so much better than Battlefield 4. It's such a better, more polished game and extremely well optimized, and the graphics are just phenomenal. So it's like, you know, on all those fronts, it's great. It's fucking fantastic. The gameplay itself, major improvements to Battlefield 4. So it's like, if you like Battlefield 4 and even Hardline, this is like a step in the right direction. This is taking all the shit they learned from those two games, just like, you know, making the super game where they're like, hey, look, everything we've learned, we're gonna make it better and it's gonna work. And we don't have the stupid Battlelog fucking browser. It's probably the biggest plus ever. I mean, I got used to Battlelog and I was kind of like, okay, I like it, whatever, but no. They stripped it out, and I'm so happy for it. I miss the days where you just start up the game and you look for the fucking servers in the game. Not the stupid fucking, I have to launch, you know, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, whatever in the background to be able to fucking find a game. Like, that shit's so annoying, and I'm so glad they got rid of it. And in fact, I'm really excited that they're even changing that for Battlefield 4, and I think even 3 and Hardline. They're going back and they're just getting rid of Battlelog. I think it'll still exist, but not in the way it's functioning now. Everything will be done in-game, and I'm honestly insanely pumped for that because I don't like Battlelog. I mean, I got used to it, doesn't mean I have to like it, and Battlefield 1 is a huge step in the right direction for getting rid of all that shit and making it a lot like the console versions where everything is just done in-game. There's still a server browser, there's still matchmaking, they give you all of it, but in-game. And that's like the best fucking way you can ever do it. Unlike Battlefront, where they only had matchmaking, they're giving you everything. Matchmaking and a server browser. They even say it in the game, the old school method. Like, it's not old school, it's just the way you fucking do things. But if you want to go into matchmaking, you absolutely can. And of course, they even have like a simpler way to actually party up in the game. You know, on the right-hand side of your menu, you'll have your friends list, and you can just add people to your squad. It just makes it so much more intuitive, a lot easier. I mean, the overall simplicity and expediency of being able to get into a game, just have fun, is a lot. It's just there. It's a lot more. Like, it's so much more improved on that front, making it easier to just get into a game and have some fun, which, again, is a huge plus. That's kind of what Battlefield is to me. Battlefield is that game. You know, I was criticizing it earlier, saying like, oh, you just sprint everywhere, you blow shit up, it's all over the top and crazy. Like, I like that, though. You know, I like that when it, you know, I'm in the mood for it. Even though I like very realistic games, you know, I can still appreciate these kind of games. I like all kinds of games, you know? I like playing, like, Unreal Tournament. I like all kinds of games. I'm a gamer. I like playing all this kind of shit. And Battlefield kind of hits that niche where it's like, it's just over the top and crazy on a bigger scale. And you got like games like Call of Duty, which are the same thing, but kind of in a, you know, more enclosed space, in a smaller map and whatever. So, those are my opinions on some of the things. I mean, obviously there's a lot that I didn't cover, but there's like, I mean, who cares, right? Like, you can go play this yourself. If you're at all interested in trying out this game, just go download it yourself. It's like 7.5 gigs. It's a very small download. You can absolutely just give it a shot and be like, hey, look, I like it, or I don't. I mean, everyone's opinions will be different. There are things I like about it, there are things I don't. And everyone's gonna, you know, be the same way. Whether or not it's actually gonna be worth purchasing to you is debatable. So, only you can find that out. Now, don't take my word for it. Go try it out yourself. My name's been PepperBelly. Thank you guys for joining me today on this video. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
Abran, abran!